The crimson sky of Zephyria wept acid rain as Nira picked her way through the twisted wreckage of what had once been the capital city. Her silver-white skin gleamed with a faint luminescence, the only source of light in this devastated landscape, where the sun hadn't broken through the toxic clouds in 3 cycles. The delicate gills along her neck fluttered as she filtered the poisonous air, her body naturally purifying what would kill most other species in minutes. She moved with the fluid grace of her people, the luminous, her bare feet making no sound on the charred metal and broken stone. The war between the human colonies and the Nexus Alliance had turned this once beautiful world into a graveyard, but Nira continued her work as one of the last healers of her kind. She searched for survivors among the ruins, offering what comfort she could to the dying regardless of their species. The soft shimming of her bioscanner led her to a crater where something metallic glinted. Beneath a pile of debris, an escape pod, its hull cracked and blackened, lay half buried in the rubble. Steam rose from its damaged systems, and she could hear the weak pulse of a failing life support system. Without hesitation, she began clearing away the chunks of concrete and twisted metal, her slender hands surprisingly strong. The pod's emergency hatch had been warped shut by the impact. Nira pressed her palms against the metal, allowing her natural bioelectric field to interface with the ship's systems. The mechanism groaned and finally gave way, revealing the cramped interior filled with smoke and the acrid smell of burning electronics. Inside lay a human male, his dark hair matted with blood, his breathing so shallow it was barely perceptible. His olive skin had taken on an ashen pallor, and crimson stained the front of his torn engineering uniform. Nira's enhanced senses immediately detected the extent of his injuries: internal bleeding, severe trauma to his lungs, and what appeared to be some kind of exotic radiation poisoning from his ship's damaged core. He was dying, and by all medical logic, he should have been dead already. Something about his face caught her attention as she gently lifted him from the pod. Even unconscious and battered, there was a determined set to his jaw, a strength in his features that spoke of someone who had fought hard to survive. His calloused hands told the story of a life spent working with machinery, creating and repairing rather than destroying. Another victim of their endless war, she whispered in her melodic native language, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the very air around them. The translator device at her throat converted her words to standard galactic, though there was no one alive to hear them. She carried him to the shelter she had made in the ruins of an old medical facility, where her few supplies and makeshift healing chamber waited. The building's original purpose seemed fitting. It had been a place of healing once, and she had made it so again. Bioluminescent plants from her homeworld cast everything in a gentle blue-green glow, their light helping to neutralize some of the atmospheric toxins. As she laid him on the biomat, her scanner confirmed what she had already sensed. His life force was fading rapidly, like a candle in a hurricane. She had perhaps minutes before the cascade of organ failure became irreversible. Her medical supplies could treat the external wounds, but the internal damage and the radiation poisoning were beyond her equipment's capabilities. There was another way, though, a way her people had used in the most desperate circumstances, though it came with risks that made even the luminous hesitate. The breath of life, a direct transfer of her own vital essence to sustain another. It was sacred, intimate, and irreversible once begun. She knelt beside him, studying his face one more time. Why was she even considering this for a stranger? Her people had learned to be cautious around other species, especially humans whose capacity for both great compassion and terrible cruelty had become legendary across the galaxy. Yet something about this man called to her healer's instincts. "Forgive me," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was asking forgiveness from him, from her ancestors, or from herself. Nira placed her hands on either side of his face, her palms warm against his cooling skin. She closed her eyes and began the ritual her grandmother had taught her, the one she had sworn never to use unless no other choice remained. The luminescence of her skin brightened, flowing down her arms like liquid starlight until her hands glowed with contained radiance. She leaned down until her lips were barely touching his, and exhaled slowly. The breath that left her lungs was more than air. It carried the essence of her life force, the accumulated energy of her 300 years of existence. The light flowed from her mouth into his, and she felt something fundamental shift between them, like two rivers joining to become one. The sensation was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was as if she was pouring part of herself into an empty vessel, filling spaces in his spirit that had been hollowed out by pain and trauma. She felt his memories brush against hers, flashes of a life spent among the stars, of laughter shared with a sister, of the terror and desperation that had driven him to this ruined world. Marcus. His name was Marcus Chen, and he was an engineer who had been trying to repair a colony ship's navigation system when the attack came. He had seen friends die, had barely escaped in this damaged pod, and had crash-landed on Zephyria more by luck than skill. He was 28 years old, had never been in love, and had dreamed of designing starships that could carry people to new worlds in peace rather than war. The connection deepened, and suddenly she was seeing through his eyes, feeling his emotions as if they were her own. The loneliness of a life spent always moving from one assignment to the next, the quiet pride he took in his work, the way his heart ached when he saw the destruction that technology could bring. He was a builder trapped in an age of destroyers, and that resonated with something deep in her healer's soul. Time seemed suspended as the transfer continued. She felt her own life force diminishing while his grew stronger, like water flowing from a full vessel to an empty one. Her luminescent skin dimmed as his color returned to normal, his breathing deepening and steadying. The radiation damage healed itself from within as her essence merged with his cellular structure, repairing what had been broken and strengthening what remained. When she finally pulled back, gasping and dizzy from the effort, she saw his eyes flutter open. They were brown, warm and confused, with flecks of gold that caught the bioluminescent light. He stared up at her with wonder, as if she were something out of a dream rather than reality. "Who?" he began, his voice hoarse, but stronger than it had any right to be. "What happened?" I was dying." Nira sat back on her heels, suddenly, aware of how drained she felt. The constant glow that had been part of her since birth had dimmed to barely a flicker, and there was a strange emptiness inside her chest, as if something vital had been carved away. She tried to speak, but found herself too weak to form words. Marcus sat up slowly, testing his limbs as if he couldn't quite believe they were working. The wounds that had been bleeding freely were now sealed, leaving only faint scars. He looked at his hands in amazement, flexing his fingers and staring at the steady pulse visible in his wrists. "You saved me," he said, his gaze returning to her face. "But how? I felt like I was already gone." And then he trailed off, searching for words to describe something beyond normal experience. "It was like you breathed life back into me." She tried to nod but found even that simple motion exhausting. What had she done? The breath of life was supposed to share her essence, not transfer it wholesale. She had never heard of a reaction like this, though she had to admit her grandmother's teachings had been incomplete. The ritual was so rarely used that much of its deeper mechanics remained mystery. Even to the luminous, Marcus noticed her distress and moved closer, his engineer's instincts immediately focusing on a problem to be solved. "Hey, are you all right? You look." He paused, taking in her dimmed luminescence and the way she swayed even while sitting. "You look like I felt before, like you're the one dying now." She managed a weak smile, finally finding her voice. The healing requires sacrifice. I gave you part of my life force. You should live now. But The words caught in her throat as the full implications hit her. She might have saved him, but at what cost to herself? Part of your life force. Marcus's eyes widened in alarm. "What does that mean? Can I give it back? Tell me how to fix this." Before she could answer, exhaustion overwhelmed her and darkness claimed her consciousness. As she collapsed, Marcus caught her in his arms, and for a moment their skin made contact again. Another pulse of energy passed between them, but this time it flowed in the opposite direction. From him back to her. He felt it happen, a sensation like giving up something precious but necessary. Some of the strength and vitality that she had shared with him flowed back into her body, and her dim glow brightened slightly. It wasn't much, but it was enough to stabilize her condition and bring color back to her silver skin. As he held her unconscious form, Marcus realized that whatever she had done to save him had created something unprecedented between them. They were connected now in ways he didn't understand, bound together by the breath of life she had shared. He could feel her heartbeat as if it were his own, could sense her dreams even as she slept outside. The acid rain continued to fall on the ruins of Zephyria, but inside their shelter, something new had been born, a connection that transcended species, a bond that would either save them both or destroy them. Marcus didn't know which, but as he watched over the mysterious woman who had given up part of herself to save a stranger, he knew his life had just changed in ways he couldn't begin to imagine. The question now was whether either of them would survive long enough to understand what they had become. 3 days had passed since the breath of life ceremony, and Marcus was beginning to understand that something fundamental had changed within him. He stood before the cracked mirror in Nira's makeshift shelter, staring at his reflection with growing unease. The scar on his forehead, earned in a childhood accident, had completely vanished. The lines around his eyes from years of squinting at technical displays were gone. Even his hair seemed darker, fuller than it had been in years. "This isn't possible," he muttered, running his fingers through hair that should have been showing the first hints of gray. At 28, he had started noticing the small signs of aging that came with a life spent in the harsh environments of space stations and colony worlds. Now he looked like he had stepped backward in time. Behind him, Nira stirred on the biomat, where she had been resting. The past 3 days had been a careful dance of recovery for both of them. She would exhaust herself healing the wounded they found in the ruins. Then Marcus would somehow channel strength back to her through their mysterious connection. Neither fully understood how it worked, only that it did. "The changes are accelerating," she said softly, her voice carrying that melodic quality that made even simple statements sound like music. She sat up slowly, her silver skin still dimmer than it had been before their bonding, but no longer the frightening near-transparency of that first day. Marcus turned to face her, noting how she studied him with those large, luminous eyes. "What changes? What's happening to me?" "Nira, and don't tell me it's normal. I can see in your face that you're as confused as I am." She rose gracefully, moving to a collection of crystalline data tablets she had salvaged from various ruins. Her people's technology was bio-integrated, grown rather than built, and even damaged it retained some functionality. "I have been researching the breath of life ceremony and what records I can access. What we experienced, it should not have been possible, meaning the ritual is designed to share life force temporarily, like transfusing blood to save someone who is bleeding. It should stabilize the recipient long enough for normal healing to take place." She touched one of the crystals, and it glowed softly, projecting holographic text in her flowing script. "But what happened between us was not sharing, it was merging." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with Zephyria's toxic atmosphere. "Merging how?" "Your life force was not merely empty, it was damaged at a fundamental level by the radiation exposure. When I breathed my essence into you, it didn't just fill the void. It integrated with your cellular structure, your very DNA." She looked up from the crystal, her expression troubled, "and in doing so, it began overwriting your natural aging process with mine." "Your aging process?" Nira was quiet for a long moment, as if debating how much to reveal. Finally, she spoke. "My people live for approximately 2,000 of your years. We age very slowly, and our bodies constantly regenerate themselves. That regeneration is now happening in you." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. "You're saying I'm becoming immortal, not immortal, long-lived." "But yes." She set down the crystal and moved closer to him. "And there is something else, something worse." Before she could continue, a new presence made itself known from the shelter's entrance. Neither of them had heard anyone approach, which should have been impossible given the debris field surrounding their hiding place. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, elderly, with the same silver skin as Nira, but bearing intricate bioluminescent tattoos that marked him as someone of great importance among her people. "Elder Corvain," Nira breathed, dropping to one knee in a gesture of respect. "How did you find us?" The old luminous studied Marcus with eyes that seemed to see far more than just the surface. "I felt the disturbance in the life streams 3 nights ago. a tearing, a fundamental violation of the natural order. His voice carried the weight of centuries. You have done something unprecedented, young healer. And foolish. Marcus bristled at the accusation in the elder's tone. She saved my life. If that's a violation of your natural order, then maybe your order needs to be questioned. Corvain's attention fixed on him with uncomfortable intensity. Brave words from someone who does not understand what he has become. Tell me, human, do you feel different? Stronger, more alive than you have ever been? Yes, Marcus admitted reluctantly. And you, Nira? The elder continued, his gaze shifting to the young healer. How do you feel? Tired? Weak? As if something vital has been drained from you, Nira's silence was answer enough. The breath of life was never meant to be used between species, Corvain said, moving into the shelter with the fluid grace of his people. The difference is in life force structure, in cellular resonance. It creates an imbalance that nature seeks to correct. Correct how? Marcus demanded. By completing the transfer, Nira whispered, understanding dawning in her eyes. My essence didn't just merge with yours, it's still flowing into you. Slowly, but constantly. Corvain nodded grimly. She is aging at an accelerated rate while you grow younger and stronger. The process will continue until either she dies and you become fully luminous. In longevity, or what? Marcus asked, though he suspected he didn't want to know the answer. Or the transfer reverses catastrophically, killing you both, the elder finished. There is, however, a third option. Hope flared in both their eyes. The Temple of Eternal Cycles in the northern wastes. It was built by the first luminous who came to this world, before the wars, before the toxicity. If it still stands, if its systems remain functional, there's a ritual that can sever the bond between you. But, Nira prompted, sensing there was more. But the temple lies in the heart of the most poisoned region of this world. The journey would likely kill any normal being, and even if you reach it. Corvain paused. The severing ritual requires a choice. One of you must sacrifice your enhanced longevity to restore balance. The human would return to his normal lifespan. The luminous would regain her full essence. Both would live, but separately, as nature intended. Marcus felt something twist in his chest at the thought of losing the connection he had with Nira. Over the past 3 days, their bond had become something precious to him. He could sense her emotions, feel her presence even when she was out of sight. The thought of returning to the isolation he had known before seemed almost unbearable. How long do we have? Nira asked. Based on the rate of transfer I can observe, perhaps 2 weeks before the imbalance becomes critical for one of you. As if summoned by their conversation about time running out, the sound of approaching engines echoed across the ruins. Corvain's expression hardened. We are no longer alone. Someone else has detected the life force disturbance. Through the gaps in their shelter's walls, they could see lights moving systematically through the wreckage, search patterns that spoke of professional hunters rather than casual scavengers. The newcomers were looking for something specific. Who are they? Marcus asked, instinctively moving closer to Nira. Bounty hunters, most likely, Corvain replied. Word of what has happened here will have spread through certain channels. There are many who would pay handsomely for a human who has been enhanced with luminous longevity. They want to study me, Marcus realized. Turn me into some kind of lab rat, or breed you. Nira said quietly, if the enhancement can be replicated, passed on to offspring, the engines were getting closer. Whatever decision they were going to make, it needed to be now. The temple, Marcus said firmly. We go to the temple. The journey will be dangerous. Even without pursuit, Corvain warned, and I am too old to accompany you. My presence would only slow you down. Then tell us how to find it, Nira said, her healer's determination overriding her obvious affection for her elder. Corvain touched another of the crystalline tablets, and a map appeared in the air between them, a route through the wasteland that looked treacherous even by Zephyria's current standards. Follow the old trade routes north, but avoid the major ruins. They will be watching those. The temple is here, he indicated a point on the map, built into the caldera of an extinct volcano. The radiation levels there are significant. How significant? Marcus asked. Lethal to most species within hours. But your enhanced physiology should protect you, and Nira's natural resistance will help. The real danger will be the journey itself. The sound of the engines had stopped, replaced by voices shouting orders in several different languages. Their pursuers were close enough to search on foot now. "Go," Corvain urged. "I will delay them as long as possible." Nira gathered her few possessions while Marcus shouldered a pack of supplies they had assembled. As they prepared to leave through a concealed exit Nira had prepared for just such an emergency, the young healer turned back to her elder. "Corvain, there's something. I need to know. The connection between us, is it just the life force transfer? Or is there something more?" The old luminous studied them both, noting how they unconsciously moved in sync, how their breathing had fallen into the same rhythm. "The breath of life creates many kinds of bonds, child. Some are of the body, some of the spirit. What you have created," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "What you have created may be something entirely new." As they slipped out into the poisoned night, Marcus caught Nira's hand in his. The touch sent a warm pulse of energy between them, and for a moment he could feel her emotions as clearly as his own: fear for their safety, determination to reach the temple, and underneath it all, something that felt remarkably like love. "Whatever happens," he said quietly as they began their journey toward the northern wastes. "I'm glad you saved me, even if it kills us both," she asked. "Even then," he replied, and meant it. Behind them, the lights of their pursuers swept through the ruins, hunting for prey that was already gone. Ahead lay a journey that would test not just their physical endurance, but the very nature of the bond that connected them, and at the end of it, a choice that would determine whether their love was strong enough to survive the sacrifice it might demand. The northern wastes of Zephyria were a testament to the absolute destruction that modern warfare could achieve. What had once been fertile plains and thriving cities was now a landscape of glass craters and twisted metal spires that reached toward the toxic sky like the fingers of buried giants. The very air shimmered with residual energy from weapons that had torn holes in reality itself. Marcus and Nira had been traveling for days, moving primarily at night to avoid the worst of the radiation and the hunting parties that Corvain had warned them about. During the day, they sheltered in whatever intact structures they could find, usually the lower levels of buildings where the metal and concrete provided some protection from the energized atmosphere. It was in one such shelter, a basement laboratory that had somehow survived the orbital bombardment that destroyed the city above it, that they first encountered Vex. Marcus was working on their portable scanner, trying to boost its range so they could detect radiation hot spots from a greater distance, when Nira suddenly went rigid beside him. Through their bond, he felt her alarm spike before he heard what had alerted her: the soft whisper of a footstep on debris where no footstep should be. "We know you're in there," a voice called from above, speaking accented standard galactic. It was female, confident, with the kind of casual authority that spoke of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "The energy signatures you're throwing off are lighting up sensors for kilometers around. Might as well come out and talk." Marcus reached for the improvised weapon he had crafted from salvaged materials, essentially a high-powered laser cutter with an extended power cell. Beside him, Nira's hands began to glow with the bioelectric energy her people could channel. In combat, their bond had deepened during their journey, and he could feel her drawing strength from him even as she prepared to fight. The voice continued, "I could just drop a plasma charge down there and save us all some time." "Your choice. She's alone," Nira whispered, her enhanced senses reading the sounds from above. "But armed, very well armed." Marcus considered their options. They were trapped in the basement with only one way out, and their mysterious visitor held the high ground. "What do you want?" He called upward. "To talk. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm coming down." The figure that descended through the rubble-strewn stairwell was not what Marcus had expected. She was human, though clearly modified with various cybernetic enhancements that glowed softly beneath her skin. Her hair was a striking purple that definitely wasn't natural, and her eyes held a predatory intelligence that reminded him of the hunting cats he had seen on frontier worlds. She wore form-fitting armor that looked like it could stop anything short of a direct hit from a starship cannon. Most notably, She was pointing a weapon at them that Marcus didn't recognize. Some kind of energy projector that hummed with barely contained power. "Relax," she said, noting their defensive postures. "If I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. The name's Vex, and I'm here on business." "What kind of business?" Nira asked, her glow intensifying. "The profitable kind." Vex settled into a comfortable crouch that kept her weapon trained on them, while allowing her to move quickly if needed. "You two have become quite the hot commodity in certain circles. Word is out that a human has been enhanced with luminous longevity. There are people willing to pay very large sums for that kind of breakthrough. We're not for sale," Marcus said firmly. "Everything's for sale if the price is right." Vex replied with a grin that showed teeth filed to sharp points. "But here's the thing. I've been monitoring the hunters tracking you, and they're not all interested in keeping you alive for study. Some of them have orders to bring back tissue samples and genetic material. They don't much care if you're breathing when they collect it." The casual way she delivered this information sent a chill through both of them. "So what's your angle?" Marcus asked. "Simple. I get you to safety, away from the kill teams. And in exchange, you let me document the enhancement process. Nothing invasive. Just detailed scans and records that I can sell to the highest bidder. Everyone wins. And if we refuse," Vex shrugged, "then I leave you to deal with the competition on your own. But I should mention that the team closing in on your position includes a pack of Xerian shock troops and a Void Hunter." Nira's luminescence flickered with fear. Marcus felt her terror through their bond and understood immediately. Whatever these things were, they represented something far worse than mere bounty hunters. "What's a Void Hunter?" he asked. "Living weapon," Vex explained. "Bioengineered predator designed to track specific genetic signatures across interstellar distances. Once it has your scent, it never stops hunting. And the one tracking you, it's been modified to specifically hunt luminous life energy." "How do you know all this?" Nira demanded. "Because I used to work for the people who created it," Vex said. "Simply, before I decided the freelance life was more profitable." Before anyone could respond, a new sound echoed through the ruined building above them, a low, harmonious humming that seemed to resonate in their bones. Marcus felt Nira go completely still beside him, her fear spiking through their connection. "What is that?" he whispered. "Ship landing," Vex said, checking a display on her wrist. "And not one of the hunter teams. This is something else." The humming grew louder, accompanied by the distinctive whine of anti-grav engines cycling down. Through the gaps in the ceiling, they could see light filtering down. Not the harsh white of military searchlights, but the warm amber glow of civilian lighting. A voice called down from above, speaking in perfect standard galactic within. Accent Marcus recognized immediately. His heart nearly stopped. Marcus, are you down there?" "It's me, it's Talia, your sister," Nira asked, picking up his shock through their bond. "My twin sister," Marcus confirmed, his mind reeling. "But what is she doing here? How did she even find this place?" "Same way everyone else did," Vex said grimly, "following the energy trail you're broadcasting. Though if she's here, that means word has spread a lot further than I thought." "Marcus, please." Talia's voice called again. "I know you're alive. I can feel it. The bond between us isn't completely gone." Marcus looked at Nira in confusion. "What bond? We're twins, but we're not telepathic or anything. Family bonds run deeper than most people realize," Nira explained. "If your sister is sensitive to life energies, the changes in you might have created an echo she could follow across space." "I'm coming down," Talia announced. "And I'm not alone. I brought help." The figure that descended into their hiding place was indeed Marcus's sister, though she looked haggard and worn in a way he had never seen before. Her usually pristine ship captain's uniform was wrinkled and stained, her short brown hair disheveled, but her eyes, the same warm brown as his own, lit up with relief when she saw him. "Thank God," she breathed, moving toward him with tears streaming down her face. "I felt you die, Marcus. 3 days ago, I felt you actually die, and then you came back but different. I've been searching every system between here and home trying to find you." Behind her came a second figure, a tall, athletic woman, with the distinctive pale skin and white hair of a deep space navigator. She carried herself with military precision, and Marcus noticed she kept one hand near the sidearm at her hip. "This is Captain Rhea," Talia said, noticing his attention. "She's been helping me search for you." "Actually," Rhea said, her voice crisp and professional, "I've been trying to talk your sister out of this suicide mission. Zephyria is under quarantine by 3 different governments. We're lucky we weren't shot down just getting here." Vex had remained silent during the reunion, but now she stood and powered down her weapon. Well, this just got interesting. A family reunion, a guilt-ridden navigator, and a bounty hunter walk into a radioactive basement. "You're a bounty hunter?" Talia asked, her hand moving toward her own weapon. "Reformed bounty hunter," Vex corrected, "currently operating as a freelance protection specialist. The distinction being, I'm trying to keep your brother alive instead of selling him to the highest bidder." Marcus held up his hands before the situation could escalate further. "Everyone just calm down. We can sort out who's who and what's what later. Right now, we need to get moving. Vex says there are kill teams closing in on our position." "Kill teams?" Talia's face went pale, industrial espionage taken to the logical extreme. Rhea explained grimly, "If someone has developed a longevity enhancement, there are corporations that would literally kill entire worlds to get their hands on it." Through their bond, Marcus felt Nira's growing exhaustion. The stress of the constant flight and the ongoing energy transfer was taking its toll on her. He could also sense something else, a growing urgency, as if time itself was pressing against them. "We need to reach the Temple of Eternal Cycles," he said. "It's the only place where this bond between us can be safely severed." Severed. Talia looked between them, clearly noting the connection that was obvious even to an outsider. "Marcus, what exactly happened to you?" "Long story," he said. "Short version, Nira saved my life using a ritual that connected our life forces. Now we're both dying unless we can find a way to break the bond safely. Or," Vex interjected, "you could let nature take its course and become the galaxy's first human luminous hybrid. The scientific applications alone would be worth." "No," both Marcus and Nira said simultaneously. "Right then, temple it is." Vex consulted her wrist display again. "But we've got company incoming. Multiple ships, moving fast and not broadcasting. Friendly intentions." As if summoned by her words, the sound of engines filled the air above them. Not the gentle hum of Talia's ship, but the harsh roar of military-grade attack vessels. "Time to go," Rhea announced, already moving toward the stairs. "My ship can outrun anything they're likely to have, but we need to move now." As they gathered their few possessions and prepared to flee once again, Marcus caught Nira's hand. Through their bond, he felt her determination strengthening, drawing on reserves she didn't know she had. "Whatever happens," she said quietly, "we face it together." "Together," he agreed. Above them, the first explosions began to shake the building as their pursuers decided that subtle tracking was no longer necessary. The hunt had entered a new, more deadly phase, and their unlikely group of allies would be tested in ways none of them could imagine. The race to the Temple of Eternal Cycles had begun, and failure would mean more than just death. It would mean the destruction of something beautiful and new that had been born in the ashes of war. The Temple of Eternal Cycles rose from the northern wastes like a fever dream given form, built into the caldera of an ancient volcano. Its bioluminescent spires twisted skyward in patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if the architecture existed in more dimensions than human eyes could properly process. The entire structure pulsed with a rhythm that matched the planet's magnetic field, creating harmonics that could be felt in the bones of anyone who approached. Marcus, Nira, and their unlikely group of allies stood at the edge of the radiation zone that surrounded the temple, their bodies protected by the energy shields Rhea's ship projected. Getting here had cost them dearly, 2 days of running battles with hunter teams, a harrowing chase through an asteroid field where Vex's knowledge of hidden jump points had been the only thing keeping them alive, and the discovery that the void hunter tracking them was closing in faster than anyone had anticipated. "The energy readings are off the charts," Rhea reported from her portable scanner. "Whatever's powering that place, It's operating on principles I don't recognize. Ancient luminous technology, Nira explained, though even she seemed awed by the sight. Built before my people understood the dangers of interfacing directly with planetary energy system. The temple is alive, in a sense. It's been growing and evolving for over 3,000 years. Talia checked the readings on her own equipment, her engineer's training making her naturally curious about the impossible. The radiation should be killing us from here, but something is actually neutralizing it as it approaches our group. How is that possible, Marcus? Vex said quietly, her enhanced eyes tracking something the others couldn't see. You're glowing. It was true. Marcus looked down at his hands and saw a faint luminescence beneath his skin, similar to Nira's but somehow different, more chaotic, less controlled. Through their bond, he could feel the temple's energy calling to whatever he had become. Recognizing the luminous essence within him, the temple is responding to the bond between us. Nira realized it's treating us as a single entity. Is that good or bad? Marcus asked. I don't know, she admitted. This is beyond anything in our historical records. Their conversation was interrupted by a sound that made everyone reach for weapons. The distinctive shriek of a void hunter's call echoing across the wasteland. The creature was close now, probably less than an hour behind them. We need to move, Vex announced. Whatever we're going to do in there, we need to do it fast. The approach to the temple was more harrowing than any of them had expected. The closer they got to the structure, the more reality seemed to bend around them. Gravity fluctuated wildly, sometimes pulling them toward the temple, sometimes pushing them away. The air itself took on a consistency like liquid, requiring effort to move through even with their protective gear. Most disturbing were the echoes, glimpses of other people walking the same path at different times. Ghost images of luminous pilgrims from centuries past flickered in and out of existence, their forms translucent, but somehow more real than the landscape around them. Time distortion. Rhea muttered, her navigator's training helping her understand what they were experiencing. The temple is existing in multiple temporal states simultaneously. Will that affect the ritual? Marcus asked Nira. I don't know, she replied, her voice strained with exhaustion. The constant energy drain was accelerating as they approached the temple, and Marcus could feel her life force flowing into him at an alarming rate. The records spoke of communion with the eternal cycles, but I never imagined it would be so literal. They reached the temple's entrance just as the first tendrils of dawn began to touch the horizon. The doorway was an organic arch that seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting in rhythm with some vast, unseen heartbeat. Symbols flowed across its surface like living things, shifting between scripts from dozens of different civilizations. It's beautiful, Talia whispered. It's terrifying, Vex corrected, though her tone held a note of awe. As they approached the threshold, a figure emerged from within the temple, tall, ancient, with skin that seemed to be made of living starlight, unlike any luminous they had encountered. This being appeared to be composed of pure energy, barely contained in humanoid form. Welcome, travelers, the figure said, its voice resonating through the temple's structure rather than through the air. I am the Oracle, keeper of the eternal cycles, guardian of the sacred balance. We seek the severing ritual, Nira said, performing the formal greeting of her people. I know why you have come, the Oracle replied. The bond between you has created ripples throughout the life streams. You are the first to achieve such a fusion between species, and your presence here fulfills prophecies written in languages that no longer exist. Prophecies? Marcus asked. The coming of the bridge, the Oracle explained. One who would span the gap between mortal and eternal, showing a new path for evolution itself. But prophecies are tricky things. They tell us what might be, not what must be. The Oracle gestured for them to follow, leading them into the temple's main chamber. The space was vast beyond possibility, with a domed ceiling that showed not stone or metal, but what appeared to be a direct view of spacetime itself. Galaxies wheeled overhead, and streams of energy flowed between them in patterns that suggested consciousness on a cosmic scale. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform surrounded by flowing pools of liquid light. The platform itself was covered in symbols that matched the ones flowing across Marcus's skin, the result of his ongoing transformation. The severing ritual is possible, the oracle said, but it requires understanding the true nature of what you have become. You are no longer merely human and luminous. You are something new, a hybrid consciousness that exists in multiple states simultaneously. What does that mean? Talia asked, though she was clearly struggling to process what she was seeing. It means the choice before you is not simply about breaking a bond. The oracle replied, it is about choosing what kind of existence you will have. Together or apart, you will both be changed by what happens here. 6 months after the events at the Temple of Eternal Cycles, Marcus and Nira stood on the observation deck of the research station. They had established an orbit around Zephyria. The planet below was slowly healing, its toxic atmosphere gradually clearing as the bioremediation systems they had designed began to take effect. What had once been a graveyard was showing the first signs of new life. The northern continent is showing significant improvement, Nira reported, her enhanced senses able to detect changes in the planetary energy systems that their instruments couldn't yet measure. The life streams are beginning to flow naturally. Again, Marcus nodded, studying the data flowing across his workstation. The bond between them had evolved since their experience in the temple, becoming something more refined and controllable. They could share thoughts and emotions when they chose to, but they were no longer overwhelmed by the constant flow of each other's experiences. Talia's terraforming algorithms are working better than we projected, he said. At this rate, Zephyria could be habitable again within a decade. Through the observation deck's transparent aluminum windows, they could see ships moving between the planet and their station, refugees returning to reclaim their homeworld, scientists eager to study the unprecedented recovery, and diplomats from a dozen species working to establish new treaties that would prevent another devastating war. Their success had come at a price, though. The transformation they had undergone at the temple had made them objects of intense scientific interest. Research requests flooded in from across the galaxy, all seeking to understand how they had achieved perfect balance between two incompatible life force systems. Some were benign, but others came from organizations that saw them as resources to be exploited rather than people to be respected. The Hegemony Council wants another meeting, Marcus said, reviewing the morning's communications. They're offering unlimited funding for longevity research if we'll submit to comprehensive testing, and the Luminous Conclave is threatening to declare us outcasts if we share our sacred secrets with outsiders, Nira added with a bitter laugh. Sometimes I think we traded one kind of pursuit for another. Before Marcus could respond, Talia's voice crackled through the intercom. Marcus, Nira, you need to get to the medical bay immediately. We have a situation. They found Talia and Rhea clustered around a medical scanner, their expressions grim. On the examination table lay Vex, unconscious and pale, her cybernetic enhancements flickering erratically. What happened? Nira asked, immediately moving to the former bounty hunter's side. She collapsed during a routine equipment check, Rhea explained. The scanner is detecting some kind of systemic failure in her biomechanical integration systems. Marcus studied the readouts, his engineering background helping him interpret the complex data. This isn't random system failure. It looks like targeted sabotage, something designed to activate after a specific time delay. Who would want to hurt Vex? Talia asked. Her former employers, Nira said quietly, her hands glowing as she tried to use her healing abilities to stabilize the other woman's condition. She told us she used to work for the people who created the Void Hunter. They don't like loose ends. Vex's eyes fluttered open, focusing with difficulty on the faces around her. Sleeper, protocol. She whispered, should have expected this. What's a sleeper protocol? Marcus asked. Insurance policy, Vex managed. If I ever went rogue, they had a way to shut me down remotely. Thought I'd disabled all the triggers. But her cybernetics sparked, sending painful convulsions through her body. Nira's healing energy was helping, but whatever was killing Vex was deeply integrated into her enhanced physiology. Can we remove the cybernetics? Talia asked. To integrated, Rhea replied after checking the scans. Her nervous system has grown around them. Removing them would kill her faster than leaving them in. Through their bond, Marcus felt Nira's determination crystallize into a plan that made his blood run cold. "No," he said immediately. "Whatever you're thinking, the answer is no. You don't even know what I'm considering," she replied, though her slight smile told him that she knew he was right. "You want to use the breath of life technique on her. But Nira, we don't know what that would do to someone with her level of cybernetic integration. And after what we went through, this is different," Nira insisted. "I'm not trying to save someone who's dying. I'm trying to overwrite a kill signal with my own life force. It should be possible to create a buffer that protects her biological systems. Should be possible isn't the same as definitely will work," Rhea pointed out. "And if it goes wrong," Marcus asked, "if it creates another bond like ours?" Nira looked at Vex, whose breathing was becoming more labored as her systems continued to fail. "Then she lives, and we deal with the complications later, before anyone could stop her." Nira leaned down and pressed her lips to Vex's, exhaling the same luminous breath she had once used to save Marcus. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Vex's cybernetics stopped flickering and began to pulse in rhythm with Nira's own bioluminescence. But this time, the process was different. Instead of the chaotic merger that had occurred between Marcus and Nira, this was controlled, precise. Nira's life force didn't transfer into Vex. It created a protective shell around her biological systems, insulating them from the kill signals while maintaining the beneficial aspects of her enhancements. When Nira pulled back, Vex's eyes were clear and alert, her cybernetics functioning normally, but now carrying a faint silver glow that matched Nira's skin tone. "Well," Vex said, sitting up slowly, "that was interesting. I feel different. Better, actually." "How different?" Marcus asked, already dreading the answer. Vex flexed her fingers, watching the interplay of biological and mechanical systems. Beneath her skin, the integration is smoother now. Less conflict between the organic and artificial components. And I can sense, she looked at Nira with wonder, "I can sense your emotions, not strongly, but they're there." Another bond, Marcus realized, but a different kind. Through his connection with Nira, he could feel the new bond forming. Not the desperate life-or-death merger they had experienced, but something more like an extended family relationship. Vex was connected to them now, part of their growing network of shared consciousness. "This is unprecedented," Talia breathed. "You're creating a collective consciousness." "Not collective," Nira corrected. "Networked. We're still individuals, but we're choosing to share certain experiences and capabilities." Over the following weeks, the implications of what they had created became clearer. Vex's enhanced capabilities, now stabilized by Nira's life force, made her an incredibly effective coordinator for their research efforts. She could interface directly with their computers while maintaining her human intuition and creativity. More importantly, she was no longer alone in the way that had driven her to become a bounty hunter in the first place. The bond gave her a sense of belonging that her cybernetic modifications had stripped away. But their success attracted new kinds of attention. The Hegemony Council declared their research too dangerous to continue unsupervised. The Luminous Conclave branded them heretics for sharing sacred techniques with outsiders. Even some of the refugee communities they were helping began to fear what they might become. "They're afraid of us," Marcus said one evening as they reviewed the latest diplomatic protests. "They see what we're doing as a threat to the natural order." "Maybe they're right," Nira replied quietly. "What we've created does challenge fundamental assumptions about consciousness and identity." "Are you having doubts?" She was quiet for a long moment, considering the question. "Not about us, never about us, but about the responsibility we've taken on. Every time we use the breath of life technique, we're making decisions that will affect the person's entire existence. That's a tremendous responsibility." Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency signal from the planet below. One of the refugee settlements was under attack by raiders, pirates, who saw the recovering world as an easy target for slaves and resources. "The defense fleet won't reach them in time," Rhea reported from the command center. "We're the only ship in range. Take us down," Marcus ordered. "Wait," Vex said, studying the tactical displays. "I have a better idea." The plan she proposed was audacious and risky. Instead of engaging the raiders directly, they would use their enhanced bond to coordinate a precision strike that disabled the attackers' ships. Without killing anyone, Vex would handle the technical aspects, using her cybernetic interfaces to hack the raiders' ship's systems. Nira would provide the bioelectric power needed to overcome their security protocols. Marcus would coordinate the overall operation while Talia and Rhea provided support. The plan worked flawlessly. Within minutes, the raider fleet found their ships dead in space, life support functioning, but all weapons and engines offline. The refugees were safe, and the raiders were left to contemplate their career choices while waiting for the authorities to arrive. That was too easy, Talia observed as they returned to the station. It was easy because we worked together, Marcus replied. 3 minds, 3 different sets of capabilities, all coordinated toward a single goal.